My husband and I met him when we were students at Binghamton University. From there onward, we visited him with Lina in Philadelphia. As you all know, that Prof Ayoub was born in South Lebanon and passed away in Canada. He received education from Beirut University, University of Pennsylvania, and PhD from Harvard University. Tonight, we are celebrating his life, and this event was hosted by Reducates, Mrs. Ayoub family, and also alums from Temple University and Hartford Seminary. I would like to welcome all family members, especially Mbak Lina. I hope Mbak Lina is doing well, given the circumstance, Mbak Lina, yeah. I'm sorry that we have to be in this place to certain degree to celebrate, but at the same time, it is not that easy if you think about what has been going on and the contribution that Prof has made. I would like also to welcome Piras and everyone who has agreed to share your memory of our teacher and friend, Professor Ayoub. I'm going to thank Professor Alwi Shihab and Yusni Shaby for coming tonight. I also welcome all friends, new friends, Dr. Imtiyaz, Dr. Irfan Omar, Dr. Machasin, Wan Sabry, Ali Munhanif, Soraya. This is all with PhDs probably, but I'm going to just mention name. Please, I would apologize if I forgot any of you. Bapak Roslan, Bapak Wahyuddin, Bapak Rafiq, Pak Zaenal, Pak Munjid, Mbak Yeni, Mbak Lien, Shalahudin, Hans, Pak Omar, Luthfi, Jacky, and Afdillah. We also have other friends who would likely to share their thoughts tonight about Professor Ayoub. But for now, I'll hand this responsibility of leading the event to Dr. Ahmad Munjid. Pak Munjid, go ahead.
Okay, Bismillah, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Etin, Professor Etin Anwar, for allowing me to moderate this event. My name is Ahmad Munjid. I teach at Gajah Mada University, and I was at Temple in between 2004 until 2011. Dr. Ayoub has many students at Temple, at Hartford, at GTU, CRCS Indonesia, but for a couple of days, we like waiting for each other to start the, who will take the initiative. And wonderfully, Professor Anwar, I think, is the one who started the initiative. So thank you very much for making this event happen tonight. Brothers and sisters, it's Dr. Mahmoud Ayoub who brought us together tonight. He is a great teacher and mentor, renowned scholar, very humble and beautiful soul, wonderful friend and family. Each and every one of us has been touched and guided by his presence in different ways. We get together tonight in a sad mood. We are very sad by his passing. We pray may Allah has accepted all his good deeds in his life. We pray may Allah has purified his beautiful soul and accepted him back in his eternal love and peace. Tonight we get together to pray, but also to express our love, our respect, and to keep fun and beautiful memories about him. We are all very grateful to have him with us, to be his students, his friends, and his family, and much more. We are here to celebrate his life, as Etin mentioned earlier, to celebrate his works, his legacy, to be encouraged and to be enlightened once again, and also to express how grateful we are, remembering the days we had with him. For me personally, I came to Temple because of him, to study under his mentorship. As you know, together with John Rains, Alwi Shihab, and others, Dr. Ayoub was among the founding parents of CRCS, Center for Religious and Cross-Cultural Studies at Gadjah Mada University here in Indonesia, where I first met him in 2000 and where I also teach now at the institution. I was among the first batch at the program, and for a few years, every summer, he would come to teach us here in Jogja, sometime to stay for the entire spring or fall semester. It was him who suggested me to apply for Fulbright. He wrote a very powerful recommendation letter, and that's how I came to Temple in 2004 to get my master and then my PhD. It was initially unthinkable for me, to go there without his assistance. So I'm forever grateful for him. We invite all of you to share your wonderful stories tonight about our experience with Professor Ayoub. But first of all, let me invite Firas Ayoub, Dr. Ayoub's sons, to share some stories on behalf of the family. You know, in 2017, while Dr. Ayoub was in Jakarta, I spoke on the phone with him, and he said, "Munjid, this will be my last visit to Indonesia. Please come and see me if you have time." And I said, "Of course, I always have time." And then I flew and I met him. We had a wonderful conversation. Among the others was about the memoir that he was writing. So maybe later on, Firas, if you like, you can also include, the status of the memoir, whether he has finished or what's going on. So let's invite Firas to speak on behalf of the family. Firas, please.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much for organizing this beautiful event and for having me on behalf of my family. I wanted to thank everyone and welcome everyone. I wrote something brief just to say about my father, which I'll share. And I also have an excerpt from his memoirs, which he has, alhamdulillah, completed. And we are looking for a publisher to publish the memoirs. And thanks to my mother, Dr. Linda Clark, they worked together on the memoirs to complete it. So now we're at that stage where we're hoping to bring it together and bring it to the widest audience possible. Okay, so let me just read. It's been a very emotional week, of course, and so I sat down and I just wrote something to reflect on my father's life. Inna lillahi wa inna ilahi raji'un. We surely belong to God, and to him we shall return. As the famous Persian poet Rumi once said, I learned that every mortal will taste death, but only some will taste life. My father lived and tasted many different lives. As a professional musician, as a world-renowned academic and interfaith leader, as a Christian, as a Muslim, and countless other lives. He is my shining example of brilliance, charisma, tenacity, and imagination. His being blind never stopped him from achieving all he set his mind to. Born in 1935 to a peasant family in southern Lebanon, it was these qualities that took him to Harvard and beyond, all over the world to meet with presidents, popes, and politicians, to spread his message of interfaith dialogue and coexistence. Throughout his life, my father never forgot his roots or the kindness that others showed him. When students and friends needed support, or his 7 brothers and sisters and their families needed to immigrate to escape the Lebanese civil war, he always stepped in and did what was right. Despite the discrimination he experienced because of his disability, he believed in the goodness of humanity and surrounded himself with those who also did. Though he had many accomplishments, I think he would most want to be remembered for his kindness, humanity, and empathy. As my father, he always put me and my sister first. He gave us the best education he could and supported us through his tenderness and love. He was our Baba, the best Baba in the world. In his final years, we would take long walks together by the St. Lawrence River here in Montreal, and I got to know him even more deeply. We developed another relationship, best friends. If I am able to carry my father's qualities and legacy with me, then I, like him, will also have tasted life. And I close with another passage by Rumi. I want to hold you close like the lute, so we can cry out with loving. Your body is away from me, but there is a window open from my heart to yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Firas. Now I want to invite Pak Alwi Shihab to share some stories and remarks for all of us. Pak Alwi, please.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi raji'un. Brother and sister, lover of Professor Ayoub, dealing with loss is never easy, particularly the loss of beloved one, whom we all here this evening were part of Professor Ayoub's life, as students, as friends. What a great loss to all of us as we learn the passing of Professor Ayoub. We are truly sorry and saddened by your passing, Professor Ayoub. Our heart and prayers go out to you, Professor. May Allah place you with his righteous servant, Ibadallah as-Salihin, and place you in Jannatin Na'im. Indeed, Professor Ayoub, you have done noble deed by educating people, East and West. Your students are scattered in every corner of the globe. Dearest Professor Ayoub, please know that all of your students love you and respect you. And we are here this evening to show our respect and love, affection. May Allah, yarhamuka rahmatul abrar, bestow his mercy and grace to you, Professor. For me, our journey together, or my journey together with Professor Ayoub, since I first met him in 30 years, 30 years ago was indeed a starting point of my real academic life, as I started to know him and started to be his real student. 30 years of full meaning, which I will always cherish forever. As a teacher, as a friend, and as a father, I'm indeed proud to be your student, Professor Ayoub, and proud to be your son, as you always call me. Professor Ayoub, you were always there beside me whenever I need advice and guidance. May Allah grant you reward and blessing, as well as forgiveness, for every single deed you rendered to me. I only have sweet and meaningful memories as I look back to 30 years. We were together at Temple University, in Jakarta, in our trip together. I always remember you as a good person, a kind person, to be loved. Your kindness, Professor, and guidance will be forever be remembered, not only by me, but all of us, especially here in this gathering. It is indeed difficult to find words to describe our sorrow and loss. What I can say as a final word, Allahumma arhamhu wa'afihi wa'afu anhu wa'adkhilhu fasiha jannati.
Amen.
To the family, Mrs. Lina, Firas, and Sumaya, and others, I only pray for your strength to face this sorrow event. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you so much, Alwi Shihab. As you know, Dr. Alwi Shihab actually is Dr. Ayoub's favorite Indonesian student. And he was the Minister of Foreign Affairs under Gus Dur, as well as holding other important position in the following administration. So thank you very much again, Pak Alwi.
You're welcome.
We will go as listed on the flyer with certain modification. Since Professor Yusni, who will lead our prayer, prefer to have it towards the end. And we also have our brother, Reverend Jacky Manuputty, Dr. Ayoub's student at Hartford. And he is now the secretary of PGI, the Union of Indonesian Churches. So first, allow me to invite Brother Jacky to share some stories, but also to recite prayer for Dr. Ayoub. Brother Jacky, please.
Thank you, Mas Munjid, and good evening to all the prominent figure, professor, friends, and colleagues who joined the great moment tonight in Indonesia, and morning in the United States and Canada. Thank you for letting me share a small story when I was in the Hartford Seminary. Yes, I was at the Hartford Seminary when Professor Ayoub and his wife moved from Temple University to Hartford Seminary. By the last of 2007, I think. At the time, we were very glad and proud also to welcome him at Hartford Seminary, considering his reputation as a prominent scholar in Islamic study. Me, myself, was grateful that I was able to take 2 of his courses. He is an extraordinary professor, a very patient teacher, and discussion partner. But apart from being a prominent scholar, Professor Ayoub is a very good person. He is so dear to all. His house is always open to students who come to discuss or having breakfast or lunch or dinner with him. Especially for Indonesian students, Professor Ayoub house is a comfortable place. He can speak a little Indonesian and knows Indonesian quite well. We were always excited when got a call from Lina, who invited us to eat at their house. Sometimes I got a phone call and Lina on the phone. Hilman and Jacky, I will make a soto. Please come and have a lunch or breakfast with us. So when we arrive, Professor Ayoub gladly shares a table with us. And during the breakfast or lunch, we have a discussion in a very friendly moment. He also used to play a music to warm the atmosphere of the meeting. I record on video clip many moments with Professor Ayoub. And if you don't mind, I will share probably 30 seconds during this meeting. Now, our dear professor left us with an abundance of legacy on each of us. So this is a great loss to all of us. Professor Ayoub will deeply remain in our memories, and Lina, Dr. Linda, and Firas will remain part of our extended family. Hopefully, the knowledge and life that he passed down to us can bear fruit in abundance in the places where we walk and serve. May God grant him a comfort place in heaven, and may Allah strengthen Lina, Dr. Linda, and Firas in this grieving moment. Please allow me to pray in a Christian faith for Professor Ayoub and his family. Let us pray. Almighty God, who reigns over our lives and death, we are grateful for the life you have bestowed upon us. We are thankful for each encounter and journey that have allowed us to be brothers and sisters to each other, regardless of our differences. At this moment of sorrow, we convey our gratitude to you in loving memory of our dear Professor Mahmoud Ayoub, who has left us a couple days ago. We thank you, Lord, for allowing him to be our teacher and friend. Thank you for enabling him to enrich our lives, both academically and spiritually. We pray for him in love and hope you can welcome him in heaven. We pray and ask you, Lord, for the strength and comfort of Lina, Dr. Linda, and Firas, and the whole family in this sorrow. We ask for God's blessing to all the legacies left by Professor Ayoub. Hopefully, the traces of his life left on us can bear fruit and be a blessing to others. To you, Almighty God, I praise in humility. Thank you. Munjid.
Thank you very much, Brother Jacky, for sharing the stories and also for the prayer. to make sure that we have enough time for everyone, we will go by the list on the player, and please keep like 5 minutes for each speaker. And there are several other friends who are not listed on the flyer. Apologize for that, because we prepared the events, in a very brief time. So we didn't have time to reach out everybody. But we also want to include our friends who are present with us here later on. Since some of us don't speak Bahasa Indonesia and many of us in the audience also do not speak English very well, it can be bilingual. I mean, if the Indonesian speaker want to use some of the words in Bahasa Indonesia, feel free. Otherwise, will be in English, and we will end our session at around 20:30. Now, let me invite Dr. Imtiyaz Yusuf to also share his stories. Brother Imtiyaz.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much for organizing this, Ahmad and Dr. Etin, bringing us all together. For people, there are two generations here of Temple University. The first generation is Dr. Manuputty, Dr. Yusni Shaby, and me. And then the second generation is your Dr. Alwi Shihab, Ahmad Munjid, and all. I feel that I have been orphaned twice. When Professor Ismail Al-Faruqi died, he was our first Baba. We got our second Baba, who was Professor Ayoub. And now we are orphaned double, 2 times. It is very sad. I miss him a lot. But I will start my statement here by reading a poem written by Faiz Ahmad Faiz in honor of Iqbal, Muhammad Iqbal, which is equivalent to honor Professor Ayoub. It is in Urdu. Irfan Omar knows it, but I have translated it into English. It says, there had come in our land one happy ascetic. He sang his ghazals and poetry, and the deserted streets became alive. Dead scholarship became transformed, but only a few people could understand his depth. But his poetry, his songs, his scholarship has settled in our hearts. Now the streets of the land are sad again, deserted again. Only few remember him, but his songs, his scholarships have become eternal. With this is the poem from Faiz Ahmad Faiz for Iqbal. I honor it to Professor Ayoub. I remember my days at Temple University when Professor Ayoub had joined, and in 1990s, 1987, 88, Professor John Rains played a very important role in getting him appointed at Temple University Department. And we became very close to each other. I used to take him to the bus stop every day to catch bus home, to go home. I used to bring him his coffee, and he used to love. He was a coffee lover, which everybody knows. And I introduced him to Kenya coffee because I come from Tanzania, and he would always ask me to bring the Kenya coffee for him. And he was always caring for me. And he was, I finished my PhD, and he was concerned that I should get a job. He tried to get me a job in Hartford Seminary. And there was also an AAR seminar, a conference in San Francisco. And he told me that you go with me, you pay for your air ticket, but you will stay with me in the hotel. I never let anybody stay with me. But for you, I will let you stay and share the same room with me. He called me his academic son, and all of us are his academic sons. And I had some personal problems in life. He knew about that, but what happened in my personal life, he knew who was behind that, but he never shared because he did not want me to hurt my relationship with that person. On the lighter moment, when I was writing my dissertation, one day we had a big argument. And when we were arguing, in the end, he said to me, "Who is the advisor?" I said, "You are the advisor." And I gave up. I remember another incident. On Sunday, we had gone to Triple IT lecture. I, Brother Salman Al-Farsi, Brother Yusha Sadiq, Brother Manuti, all of us from Temple University had gone for a lecture at Triple IT in London. In the evening, we were to return to Philadelphia, and we were driven by someone. When we decided, so someone said, "No, I will not drive the car because I'm tired." Salman Farsi was close to me, said, "No, I will not drive because I'm tired." And another brother said, "I will not drive because I'm tired." So Professor Ayoub said, "I will drive." And everybody kept quiet. And Salman immediately said, "I will drive." So this was the kind of the person Professor Ayoub was with us. He kept in touch with me always. Whenever I visited the United States, he hosted me. He told me to come and visit him in Hartford. And Lina was always there. I really am so proud of Sister Lina. She has sacrificed her whole life for carrying one person. This is a great sacrifice which she has done. And she deserves all of our dua, all of our praises, all of our support for the rest of the time. I visited Indonesia. When he was there, he wrote to me, "I'm coming to Indonesia, come and visit me." And that was the 2019 meeting which Ahmad Munjid mentioned about. That was my last meeting with him. After that, for a long time, we communicated by email again only. But it so happened that 4 months ago, Dr. Yaqub Mirza wanted something to contact me to contact Professor Ayoub. So that's how I contacted him again now on telephone. By this time, his health condition had deteriorated, and Lina was there always. Lina was taking care of him. And this 3-4 months have been very hard until now. He went through many episodes of breathlessness, going to the hospital, emergency hospital, and Sister Lina always mentioned to me and wrote to me that Dr. Ayoub is in emergency, Dr. Ayoub is in ICU. And final time, it so happened, like I shared this on my Facebook, that Sunday night when he was admitted to hospital again, I don't know why I got up at 1:30 in the night. I don't open the phone, and I opened the phone, and there was the message from Lina that he had passed away. We have missed a great person, a great human being, a great ascetic who was of the world, and Allah has always blessed him for what he was. He was kind to everyone. He never said any hard to anybody, as Dr. Shihab said before. So we are left with his memories, and let us treasure those memories and pass it on to the future generation. Indeed, a great ascetic has left us, but his scholarship is eternal. Jazakallah khair. Ameen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brother Imtiyaz. Dr. Ayoub always know how to take a teaching moment for many of his students. The story by Dr. Imtiyaz reminded me of, a small incident at CRCS when it was the first semester, I think, he taught at CRCS. And as you know, that we students are supposed to send file to him to read on his computer. And many of the Indonesian students, they didn't bother to check their, spelling. And so, it was messy on his computer, of course. And so that morning, he told us, "You see that I don't see, but I always want to make sure that I will read my paper at least 20 times before I send it to somebody else. So please be grateful for your eyes." And since then, we really want to make sure that, at least we don't make a small error like that. Okay, thank you very much, Brother Imtiyaz. And then after this, Brother Irfan Omar. But before Brother Irfan Omar, I also want to invite Professor Yusni Shaby to share your stories with us. Pak Yusni, please.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, of course, I appreciate and I respect to the family of Professor Mahmoud Ayoub, to Firas, and to Lina. So we are joining your sorrow, of course, and of course, we are also in the deep sorrow because of the loss of our great teacher and also great friend. And I share with what Alwi Shihab just mentioned, this is because in the very early stage of the coming of Professor Mahmoud Ayoub, I and Alwi, Dr. Imtiyaz were there together before the rest are coming. And what I share very much with him is the closeness. I sometimes came to his office, his library, actually at Temple University Department of Religion. And can you imagine when he said to me, Yusni, could you find a book? The title is this, the cover, this color. I check in the cupboard in the stocks. I couldn't find Prof Ayoub. Look, the color is that close to this book. Can you imagine? And then I got it. Please, could you open and page so and so and look at that footnote number so and so, and I read it to him. My goodness, can you imagine what kind of memory he has? And then once in a while, I and my family, my wife came to see him at home in Philadelphia. And then what? Yusni, can I make coffee to you? No, you don't need to. I can make myself. No, you are my guest. And he made us coffee, strong coffee and very nice coffee. But again, can you imagine? He, in the beginning, I think in '89, Prof Ayoub and Prof John Rains came to Aceh. Actually, they went to Jakarta and Yogyakarta, their big seminars in Yogyakarta, in Ambaru, and then to see also Minister of Religious Affairs at that time, Pak Munawir Shazali. And both of them came to Aceh to see us at home in Banda Aceh. Can you imagine that one? An honor, But not only that, and after that, few years after that, Prof Mahmoud Ayoub and Dr. Linda, Sumaya, Firas, 4 of them came to Aceh again. So that's why a few years back when we went to United States, I and my wife, so we visited him in Hartford, and we, at the time, the first day, Lina got driver's license and she drove us around, Hartford, around Connecticut at the time of, she got first, that driver's license. So we really enjoy being with him. And then, of course, what I teach, what I learn directly and what he teach directly to me is really a very, very humble life, humble way of life with humility, and sincerity. So that's why here, I think what Pak Alwi and Pak Imtiyaz mentions, I share with what they are feeling, and we are always with you. Thank you. Hopefully, Ulina and Firas, we can see each other sometime. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pak Yusni. As you know, Pak Yusni was the former rector of State Islamic University in Banda Aceh. And also, when I was in Philadelphia, I lived at the place where Pak Yusni used to live. So I heard, we share some space and similar stories. Okay, now I invite Brother Irfan Omar to also share your stories. Brother Irfan?
Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you. I want to thank Professor Etin for inviting me to join this group of friends of Dr. Ayoub, and I'm so honored to be part of this memorial. I'm also grateful to Lina and Firas and for the entire family for being strong. At least it helps me to be strong. But it is not all, it's only a sad moment for me. I think it is also a happy moment for me because I'm surrounded by so many of Dr. Ayoub's friends. And I know that Professor Ayoub often told me, and also I felt that he was not a stranger. Pain was not a stranger to him. Suffering was not a stranger to him. But at the same time, he was such a jolly man. He talked, he shared jovial things. He was humorous in his meetings. He was kind in his meetings with other people, as I witnessed. I first met Pa Ayoub in 1990. And I also want to echo what Pa Shihab said, and Pa Imtiyaz said, and Pa Yusni Shaby, and the prayer by our pastor. That is so appropriate for Pa Ayoub, because he was truly eclectic. He was eclectic in his scholarship, but also in his meetings, in his conversations. I've been with him alone numerous times, like many of you have. I never heard him say anything untoward about others. I often heard him say untoward things to people on their face. He was not averse to speaking his mind in front of people, not hurting them, but speaking the truth. But that's something, it's a quality that is not often found in people. So I first met him in 1990 when I had really no maturity. Some people would say I still don't have any maturity, but that's a different discussion. And I met him in his office. Pa Imtiyaz was there. I remember that moment. He was not very friendly at that time. He thought, who is this guy just coming from some kampung somewhere, and wanting to be studying with me. I was in a seminary at the time. So I met him, I talked to him, and I left. Then I went to Hartford Seminary in 91 and I took his seminar on the Quran, 91, summer of 91. And he asked me for the final paper, he asked me to work on Al-Khidr as a topic of my paper. He was going around the room and he was telling people, this might be a good topic for you, this might be a good topic for you. And then he stopped at me and he said, I want you to work on Al-Khidr. I remembered Al-Khidr from my childhood days, listening to stories, but I had no idea. I was barely knowledgeable about my own tradition at that time. But it is kind of strange for some reason, I held on to both Ayoub and Al-Khidr since that time. It's 30 years to date. And now that Pa Ayoub is gone from this world, I've also finished my book on Al-Khidr. So that's a rather strange feeling. And I'm not going to make any analogies here, but I think it is quite clear that from what I am doing as a person, as a professor, as a scholar, I think all of that has been influenced to a great deal by Ayoub. And like, Brother Imtiyaz you know, I traveled with him in many places. Brother Imtiyaz at least used to take him to the bus stop. I used to force Ayoub to go in my stinking car. And I used to drive him to Pulaski Avenue, pick him up from Pulaski Avenue. I think that's where their house was. And Firas and Sumaya would be going to school early morning. And I hated mornings, but I liked to see Ayoub in the morning because he was always cheerful. And I'm always pessimistic. So it was a perfect combination for me. But as I said, you know, I never lost touch with him. And I will keep in touch with him. Don't ask me how. So thank you for allowing me to speak. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you so much, Brother Irfan. As you know, Brother Irfan is the editor of Dr. Ayoub's book, Muslim View of Christianity. And then I will invite now Professor Machasin, is the former interim rector of the State Islamic University in Yogyakarta. And then after that, we will listen to Brother Wan Sabry. Please, Prof. Machasin, your time.
Well, thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I am not as lucky as Munjid or Pak Alwi to be the students of Professor Ayoub. I met him only in Yogyakarta since the initiation of CRCS as Center for Religion and Cross-Cultural Studies. So I was with him, with John Rains and Mahmoud Ayoub and many others to talk about how this center would be. And but after that, I met him quite often in Yogyakarta. I will tell you one thing that I think it is very much in line of what you all said about him. That's he is a man of care. One day, for example, we were in a seminar in Ambarukmo Hotel in Yogyakarta, and it is our tradition that when anyone recite the Quran and made a mistake, some other Muslim will try to help him recite the correct one. So, and I did when he made a mistake in reciting the Quran. But then he said that it is our common tradition. So we are Muslims, so we do the same thing. But then after that, I remember that he pay as reward for me when I couldn't find a good word for my English. Then he told me the English word. So for me, it's mean that he listened to me thoroughly and then gave a good word for what I couldn't find. And the other story, let me give you another two stories. One, that I was leading it is a training for new teachers for our universities, Islamic universities in Yogyakarta. Then he was there in Jogja, and I invite him to give some advice to these new teachers. Then he, of course, he talked in English, and I translated into Indonesian. But as I know that some of them didn't have any information or knowledge about Christianity and Judeo-Christian tradition. So I added some words of what he said in English in Indonesian, but it seemed to me that he realized that, and so he said that well, Machasin not only translate my word, but also make an exegesis for it. And the other story that I brought him to the house of the Professor Mu'tiali. He used to be a student also in McGill University. Then what happened there? He asked me to bring him close to Professor Mu'tiali, to sit side by side, and then he hold his hand, the hand of Professor Mu'tiali, and talk like a best friend, and knowing that they didn't share the same time at McGill. Professor Mu'tiali left McGill already, and Professor Mahmoud Ayoub came to the university. So it is like what Yusni said, that he is very warm friend for everyone. So I feel that I feel the loss of a good friend, a good colleague here by his passing. So I pray God that he placed Professor Ayoub in his in his better place. It's the Jannat 9. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. Machasin. The other day when I was with John Rains in Jogja at CRCS, in the earlier years of CRCS, before Dr. Ayoub came, actually, he informed me, you will see somebody with a very deep personality. And I didn't really understand what he meant until eventually I met Dr. Ayoub. And your words, as the previous speakers also confirmed. All right, now let's listen to the stories by Brother Wan Sabry. Please, Brother Wan Sabry. Are you here?
Ya, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Brother Ahmad, for organizing this event. This is a sort of a reunion of Professor Ayoub's students and friends, just like what he did when he was in Temple University, brought us all to Temple University and put us under his wing. I've seen here many old friends who have not met for a very long time. I'm really grateful to hear some of my old friends here. I have not met Dr. Irfan for a very long while. Well, my personal anecdote with Professor Ayoub, he's like intellectual father, and it's just like many of us. He is an intellectual father. He taught us so many things. We owe him great deals for what we have achieved today. Reason I went to Temple University was his book. I wanted to write something on tafsir, and I came across his books, Quran and its interpreters. So that has inspired me to go and studied under Professor Ayoub. Of course, 4 years with him, we have encountered so many memories, good experience with him. The only good thing to say about him, the only good thing to learn from this great man. Intellectually, much has been said. He's such a intellectual person. I still remember we wrote 3 years thesis and submitted to him, and he took only 3 days to read with full stop and commas. So that is the kind of person Professor Ayoub was. And so I asked him, Professor Ayoub, I took 3 years to write thesis and you took only 3 days to read and commented. And he said, Wan Sabry, I don't have anything else to do. This is what I do. So that has really inspired us, his student, to do our level best when we have to do things. The other thing that I learned from him during my days in Temple University, there was a time of uncertainty. There was rumors that Temple Department of Religion would be closed for not having enough students, and so we go and see him. So he said to us in a very poetic way, he said, this period of uncertainty will be blown away into the ocean of nothingness. So he has always words to describe things, and it describes things perfectly. So this is the Professor Ayoub that I know and I met, and I've learned so much from this great man. We brought him to Malaysia a few times, and we brought him to Perak, northern state of Malaysia, and few occasions we give him durians, and we give him the one of the tropical fruit that he liked in Malaysia was mangosteen, so he liked that very much. And I'm really grateful again to be his student and to be among the companions of his students. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Brother Wan Sabry. Since our sister Vivienne is also here, now I want to invite Vivienne to also share her stories. Please, Vivienne. You're still muted.
Thank you very much, Ahmad Munjid, for informing me of this event, and also to Etin, who also sent me the message. First off, I would like to extend my condolences to Lina and to Professor Ayoub's family. There's so many things to say about Professor Ayoub. I mean, it's hard to put together all those beautiful moments that we've all had with him. He brought us together when he was around, and also today. I met Professor Ayoub after I had graduated from Temple. I was a student of Professor Afruki. But, he was the one, Professor Ayoub was the one who kept me within the circle of Islamic studies student at Temple University. He would always call me and let me know what was going on. So that was really part of the reason why I get to meet all of you, most of you who came to Temple after I had graduated. As everyone had said, he was a very kind person, and he was generous with his time. I had brought him to my house so that my students at LaSalle could meet a Muslim, because at that time, there was hardly any Muslim student at LaSalle University. And he talked with them, and he was very nice and gracious, with them. There were many occasions, when he would call and he would say, I am in town. This is after he retired. Lina and I are here in Professor White's home. And so we would come for the dinners where there were a lot of interesting discussions, politics, religion, and everything in Germantown. The first time I brought him home, I drove him home, I was surprised because, he gave me the address and I was trying to find my way in Germantown. He told me where. And then he said, here, you have to make a left turn here. And I was kind of surprised, but, there were a lot of moments, that he surprised me. He also, Gisela Webb and I would come to Temple. I forgot what year it was. And we were trying to organize a seminar on Islam in Southeast Asia, because at that time, most of the studies on Islam were really on Middle Eastern Islam. And so he thought that would be a good idea, to do that. Unfortunately, there was the financial crash in Asia, Southeast Asia at the time. So that did not get off the ground. But I would like to thank him, for being a mentor and for being a friend. I mean, I was not his student at Temple. As I said, I met him after I graduated, but he was very generous with his advice on career plans. He wrote letters of recommendation for me. And of course, he also gave personal advice, because sometimes Gisela and I would tell him about our own little personal problems, and he was always willing to listen. So thank you very much, Professor Ayoub. There's so much to thank you for. I cannot really list all of them, but I also thank you for bringing us together. One time he came to Malaysia and we had a little gathering of Temple students in Malaysia, and there's so much to say. I'm at a loss for words because he meant so much to all of us. He also wanted us to be connected. I remember that time he said, oh, you invite Alwi to your class. And so I invited Alwi. And he had told me to connect with Imtiyaz. And so you mean a lot to us, Professor Ayoub. You live on in our hearts. And again, thank you for organizing this, Ahmad and Etin, and my condolences and prayers, to Lina and the family of Professor Ayoub. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vivian, for very sweet memories in your nice word. And since Brother Ali Munhanif and Soraya, I didn't see them here. So I guess we move to Brother Roslan. Brother Roslan was, with me at Temple for a number of years, and he was among the very close assistant to Dr. Ayoub. Brother Roslan,
I am
please.
here already, Professor Munjid.
Kak Soraya is here. Sorry about that. Okay, before Brother Roslan then, because on the list Kak Soraya first. Please, Kak Soraya.
Okay, thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi rajiun. My condolences to Mbak Lina, Firas, Sumaya, and Linda. And thank you for everybody for giving me opportunity to be here today. This is the sad moment for us because we lost our great and beloved professor. For me, he is not just a teacher, a friend, or a father, but also he is as a hero for me. When I recall my memory years ago, before I came to Temple University, I dreamed to study in United States, but at Temple University, but I don't know how, because at that time is quite different. With this time, we can just search through the Google, but that time is because in Aceh is limited of internet and email and whatever, so it's very difficult to get information. However, because my dream to study at Temple, I take exam to be a candidate for the Bapenas scholarship. Finally, I received the scholarship. But before I received scholarship, I mean a month after I received scholarship from Bapenas, I learned that the professor from Temple University will come to visit EIN Araniri at the time. I tried many ways to get in the meeting because I was as a junior lecturer. It's not easy. It's not supposed to invite to the meeting. However, I convinced my rector to be in the meeting because I really want to meet Professor Ayoub and Professor Jondrin at the time. Finally, I got permission to be in the meeting. And I asked many things about Temple from Dr. Ayoub. First time I met him and he gave me courage and he gave me a spirit to be strong, to get invitation from the Temple University. After that, a month later, I wrote the letter to Dr. Ayoub and Professor Jondrin about my willingness to study at Temple University. And I received reply from Professor Mahmoud Ayoub and Professor Jondrin at the time that I was accepted at Temple, and finally I chose and decided to give up my scholarship at Bapenas because Bapenas have to be 6-month training in Jakarta. I don't want to be 6-month training. I just want to study and to be fellow and student of Professor Mahmoud Ayoub. And I don't care about the scholarship at the time. I just try to find another scholarship and go to Temple. But Professor Jondrin said, okay, you can go to Temple, but you have to be, you have to take 2 courses of English at the International Center. Okay, no problem, I said. And with the support from Professor Ayoub and Professor John, I flew to United States and be his student, and I was very honored. I am very proud today to be his student because it's for me, without him, maybe I am very sad. I am very sorry because without him, maybe I cannot be who I am today, because he gave me a chance to be his student and his fellow. I own him very much, because I know is when I was at a difficult moment, in difficult time at the time, he support me as his student. He always give some spirit. For me, he is so kind. He not just as a teacher, like I said before, he also as a father, as a friend. For me, he is also as hero. I remember when I finished my master degree, and the university asked me to come back to Aceh and to teach. The EIN sent me a ticket, and I told EIN I don't want to go back to Aceh because I want to continue my study as a doctoral degree. And Professor Ayoub told me, okay, you can continue study, but what about the EIN? I told Professor Ayoub, never mind, even they cut my scholarship, I can work. Dr. Ayoub give me support and spirit so I can continue my doctoral degree and finish even with a very difficult time. But I'm very proud to be his student, because he always support us and support me when we face difficult time. So I'm very lucky to meet him when he was coming to Jakarta, to Indonesia a few years ago, and we organized a gathering at Brother Alwi house, and this is the last time I met him, because I didn't have chance to go to United States because of pandemic. When I heard he was sick from Sister Ashraf, I just pray and I hope he can recover. But I got the bad news from Sister Ashraf sent me a message that our beloved professor already gone, and I pray for him. We hope that he always in our memory, because his legacy and his knowledge always carry on by his student forever. And as my student, one more time, I own him, and goodbye, my beloved professor. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Sister Soraya. I saw some message on the chat room that Dr. Karim and also Anausin want also to share some stories. You can do that after we listen to the story by Brother Roslan. Brother Roslan, please.
Assalamu alaikum and a very good evening to all of you. Tonight is definitely a very special night, but also a very saddening one. I tried to gather some strength. I spoke to my wife long distance because she's in Singapore and I'm in Perak, and I told her about tonight's gathering. And even before I could finish my sentences, I was hearing, and she was asking me if I could survive the session. She said, "You are just talking to me now and you're already crying. How would you do, in a session?" So at the same time, I feel very, very happy to be able to meet some of my esteemed friends whom I've not met for such a long, long time, and I miss you all. Some of you I've not known you before, and to save time, I would not read out your names, but you know who you are. I first met Dr. Ayoub when he came to Singapore with Dr. Rains. They were just after a research trip in Malaysia on the Abi movement. So he was en route to, both of them were en route to America via Singapore, and they gave a public talk. And that was the first time I was so impressed by the breadth and depth of Dr. Ayoub's thinking and scholarship and the way he spoke about Islam, something that was very unusual in this part of the world. And I was also impressed by Dr. Rains when he spoke about Islam and Christianity in comparative perspective, and that also actually encouraged me to come over to Temple, and the rest was history. When I first met Dr. Ayoub, my father had just passed away 2 months earlier before I met Dr. Ayoub. So immediately when I met him in his office, I asked him, Dr. Ayoub, could I call you Abba? He said, no, Roslan, I'm just an ordinary man. I'm just a teacher. So just call me Mahmoud. So I call him Dr. Ayoub. I've learned a lot and experienced a lot. Brother Irfan Omar, how are you? He knows, because I was with him, with Dr. Ayoub all the time in his office. I followed Dr. Ayoub everywhere during his conferences in DC, even when he met up certain colleagues and friends of his up north in New York. So there are too many things that I've learned and funny moments, his aspirations. So I would just mention a few. The one thing that I learned from him personally is to go easy in life, and to let go of things that are not fundamental. It happened when one day, you see, before I left for America, I bought a new Sony Walkman. In 1995, Sony Walkman was the in thing. And I wasn't from a rich family. Even now, I'm still from a poor family. But to buy a 350 Singapore dollars Sony Walkman was a lot for me. And I kept it in a drawer in Dr. Ayoub's office until one day, somebody rushed to the office and said, Roslan, Dr. Ayoub needs you. He's in the toilet. So I rushed to the toilet without locking the door. When I got to the toilet, I said, yes, Dr. Ayoub, what happened? How could I help you? He said, I don't know why I placed my denture. Could you find my denture? So I found his denture and I brought him back to the office. As we were walking along the corridor, an African-American boy rushed out from the, the area and dashed out through the access door. So I rushed. I said, Dr. Ayoub, let me rush to the office. And I went to the office. True enough, my Walkman was gone. So I rushed and gave chase to the boy, but he soon disappeared because he was a very young boy, very energetic. So he outran me. Until 3 days later, I met him talking to the guard at the security post on my way to send Dr. Ayoub to the Temple University train station. I caught the boy and wanted to take him to the police. I said, Roslan, I will miss my train. Let us go to the train. What about this boy? Just leave him alone. And then we left. And the same thing happened again. 3 days later, I caught the boy. I said, Roslan, and he said, Roslan, it's only a Walkman. Let him go. I'll buy you a new one. True enough, 2 weeks later, he bought me a new Walkman. But it wasn't the Sony that I wanted, but he gave me that Sony. once I bought him some food, and there was some change, and he brought out his wallet and gave it to me and said, place the money in the wallet for me. He used to compartmentalize his wallet into 4 compartments. You have the $20 note area compartment, you have the $10, the $5, and the singles. And then I asked him this question, Dr. Ayoub, how would you know if I had cheated you? I may place a $10 note at your $20 compartment. It's okay, Roslan. If you want to do that, go ahead. And then I said, Dr. Ayoub, but how do you live? He said, Roslan, if I worry too much about how I'm going to live, I would have no life. That's how he humbled me, actually. You know, he brought me to my knees, realizing about what is important and what is not in life. He also introduced to us, you know, to embrace diversity and pluralism, you know, in the footsteps of Ibn Arabi. He's one of his favorite mentors, you know, and because to him, the unity of a sacred text is important. And to him, the unity of God's creation is important. And so much so that he's full of love. He said you have to love the Muslims and non-Muslims alike because they are creations of God. You cannot hate creature of God regardless of who you are and what they are. That's the other thing I learned from him. And I share the same experiences that Brother Imtiyaz Yusuf, Brother Irfan, and also Sister Vivian about driving him, because I used to drive him too. But one night, a very important thing happened, and a funny situation. His professor from Lebanon came. I mean, he wasn't coming from Lebanon, but Majid Fakhri came and gave a talk on philosophy. So he wanted to visit his professor. So I had a car, I drove him, I was a driver, he was my passenger on the right. And then behind we had the 3 angels, Patricia, who was not here with us, my wife, and the other sister, I cannot remember, there are 3 of them. None of us knew how to get there. And then Dr. Ayoub said, it's okay, I'll lead the way. So we took, you know, the highway, and then we went in circles. It's like the blind leading the blind. And we finally got to the destination. We only had 10 minutes before the whole section was over. But during the trip, Patricia asked him one thing, Dr. Ayoub, how do you deal with the madhabs, the different legal schools in Islam? And how do you know which is right, which is wrong, which is acceptable, which is not? And he made a very defining statement. He said, what all the schools agree on, that is Islam. What they differ in, that is madhab. So we took it. The funny moments, you know, from him, apart from what I experienced with his denture, he first received his JAWS program, you know, so Brother Munjid was saying about reading, you know, and checking his spelling. So he first received his JAWS programs, and I installed into his computer and did the setting. And I set the pace according to my hearing, how I hear it. And then he said, Roslan, that is too slow. How am I going to finish my reading? So he asked me to increase the speed. And he increased the speed to a point where I couldn't even understand what he was reading. But he managed to listen to that. And we had a funny moments when I did the setting. Dr. Ayoub had great aspirations. One of his last words for me before I left was, Roslan, when I die, I want to be buried beside Bawa Muhyiddin. Let me be buried at the, with the Bawa. Then I said, what happened if I go first? What happened if I can't fulfill that? It's okay. But if I die before you leave, then please bury me beside the Bawa. I don't know where he's buried now, but I hope that he is together with the Bawa in spirit. And my condolences to Lina and Firas. I know Firas since he was running around in his shorts and sometimes without, until now he has grown up into a handsome young man. So my condolences to you, Firas, and your family for the passing of our beloved teacher and father. And one day, my passing, my ending shot is, there was a moment my wife, Rokia, asked him, Dr. Ayoub, if there is something that you could ask from God, what would that be? What would be the thing that you would give up on anything but that? And then he said, I would not ask God for the Jannah, because that is up to God to put me in. Whether the Jannah or the Nar, I will accept whatever his decision is. But if God were to ask me what I want, I just wanted one thing. That is my sight. I would want to float in the universe like an astronaut and float all around just to see and appreciate his creation. That I think meant a lot for him. He just wanted to have a glimpse of creation, a glimpse of what God has made. And I hope he's there, not just watching over us, but also roaming around the universe. And may God fulfill his desire for his sight, if it matters. With that, I thank all of you again. I miss you all. And I hope God accepts and receives the soul of our beloved professor and place him in what we call in Islam, Maqam Mahmudan. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum and a very good night.
Thank you very much, Brother Roslan, for the sweet and kind memories. Now, before I invite the other name on the list, Brother Wahyuddin, as I mentioned, I want to invite Dr. Karim. And then after that, also as Nahuzin to share your story. Dr. Karim.
بسمه تبارك وتعالى والحمد لله رب العالمين والسلام عليكم ورحمته تعالى وبركاته والسلام على من اتبع الهدى ونهى النفس عن الهوى. Thank you for this memorial to this great soul, Professor Mahmoud Ayoub, who I knew since 1976 in Montreal, and over the years connected up with him on many occasions in different countries. And I last saw him about a year ago in Montreal after he had moved from Hartford. I want to send my condolences to Firas and Sumaya, and particularly to Lina, who was his right hand and his eyes and ears for so many years, and to Professor Linda Clark, his first. I'm sure they can appreciate him in ways that none of us can. But all of us have been touched by Mahmoud in many instances, and the memories that we're evoking are part of that personal feeling that we have for him. Because Mahmoud was truly a feeling person. He had a great intelligence, and he applied himself industrially, and he worked hard to achieve what he did in his professional work as a scholar. With his handicap, had to work twice, 3 times harder than most who have vision. None of us really can understand the effort that's involved. But he also had an unerring instinct and a sort of sixth sense. All of us who knew him well recognized his ability to sense when the car had taken the wrong way, know the road, and other things about his friends. He saw into their personality and told them things about themselves that they weren't aware of. I remember once he said to me, "Karim, the problem with you is that your parents never let you run in the street with the other kids when you were small." He was right. I don't know whether that was a problem, but he saw it as a problem. In terms of his work, Mahmoud was global in ways that very few of us can aspire to be. Truly was a presence in a number of continents. Here, Southeast Asia, Indonesia, Malaysia. We see that from this meeting. Also in North America, where his main base for most of his working life, and United States. Also in Europe, Mahmoud read and speak German and French, as well as English, and Arabic and Persian. He's known in Iran as well. He's quite admired there as a major scholar writing in English about Shia Islam. His book, Suffering, about aspects of Ashura, is a classic work which has stood the test of time and still one of the very best studies of this topic ever done. It may ever be done. And he has made a very serious contribution to the dialogue, the aspect of something that is not been equaled by many other individuals. This is one of his greatest legacies, because this is where Muslims are often sorely lacking and fall short and are incompetent, not engaged as they should be, especially in the current situation, the conflicts, the clashes, the misunderstandings between West and East and the Islamic world, Europe and America. We need to do a lot more along these lines. I think, for example, of this Islamic, I believe originally original and unique efforts to overcome the gap between the Muslim perception of Jesus and understanding the Jesus. These are that he left this stand, which so in this way we have to acknowledge his great contribution. More than that, his engagement with individuals, his ability to touch you, to feel what you feel, also shed light on your confusion and give you guidance, add to your understanding. He is continually with almost all the people he was associated with, and one of the richest experiences that people have shared are the meaningful discussions and engagements and exchanges that we had either in group format or one-on-one. I always treasured the moments that I could sit and share a cup of coffee, maybe smoke a cigarette, and talk about topics that were close to my mind and my heart, and she had something valuable to offer. So all of these are part of the package that the individual represented. He himself overcame so many challenges. I would just mention the last decade of his life, his infirmity were very difficult for him. And without the love and the support of he would have made it. He himself expressed to me several times that he wished he would hurry up and die rather than move on in this body. But he suffered nobly the way that can serve as an example to all of us go on years. I think that we have something in this life to give to all of us, and we should weave it into the fabric of our own existence. A bright thing that can serve to enrich all of us individually and the Muslim community as a whole. So he truly has a great legacy for all of the world, all of the religious communities, but especially for the Muslims who need to understand better his lack of prejudice and intolerance, his acceptance of the way we all are, and his ability to point a path forward which can help us out of our situation. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Karim. Now I invite Sister Asna Hussein to also share her stories. Please, Sister.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, I am sorry for the voice of Dr. Karim. I mean, we could not hear most of what he said. Nevertheless, I am taking after him. First of all, I would like to express my condolences, especially to Lina, Firas, Sumaya, and Linda. Except Lina, I have never met the three of you. Professor Ayoub's student, but I was surrounded by many of his students, like Prof Yusni, Pak Alwi, Dr. Soraya, and also Irfan Omar. All are my friends. I have not seen them for quite a while. And so I know Professor Ayoub, first of all, through them. But after marrying Karim Crow, that's why I said, I'm sorry for his voice. So I get to know Professor Ayoub even better. I visited him a few times. In fact, I think I would like to express this passing. He passed away was his strong wish actually at the end of his life. Not only because he suffered a great deal, but also because he was a man of full emotion and feelings. He expressed, in fact, as Dr. Karim Crow said earlier during our visit, a year ago in his house, and we stayed for a few days. He said he wanted to leave this world because it was painful for his family, especially for Lina. So he had that strong understanding of the feelings and the hardship of others regarding his condition. That is one. But he also shared another reason. As a Muslim, we desire death rather than life, because we know there is life after death. I think for that reason, this is, yes, we are very sad for his passing, but at the same time, this is his last wish, and we should also cherish this wonderful soul who has passed away, who has left us at this moment. And another thing I would like to remind us that his death is truly a triumph of soul over jasad, a triumph of spirit over flesh, because as I indicated earlier, from his own understanding that death is the desiring path for him and for us as a Muslim, because we know that a better life is waiting for us in the other part of the world. And we all, wish him the place in Jannah. And I would like to recite the dua normally recite in Aceh at the say that in Arabic, because this is also a moment of praying for him. So I would say, Allahumma gfir lahu warhamhu wa'afihi wa'afu anhu. Allahumma ja'al quburahu rawdatan min riyadil jannah wa la taj'al quburahu hufratan min huffarin niran. And again, I'm very grateful for this moment. May Allah accept our prayer. And we all know that he will live in our heart. And largely, all of you, you were honored to be his students. But I cherish being his friend. And in fact, he confined it in us certain very personal thought. Even, I would like one day to meet Firas and to share what he shared with us when we visited him a few times. So I end my conversation here, my statement. Once again, I would like to say my condolences to you, Lina, Firas, and Sumaya and Linda. May Allah keep you in good health and spirit. And thank to all of you, and thank Etin for this for hosting this event, and thank you to all of you. May Allah bless us all. Amin. Ya Rabbal Alamin. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Sister Asna. Now I invite Brother Wahyuddin Halim to also share his stories. Brother Wahyuddin was with me at Temple under Fulbright scholarship, and he is now a professor at the State Islamic University in Makassar. And he's been writing a series of wonderful articles about his memories with Dr. Ayoub on his social media. Brother Wahyuddin, please, your turn.
Yeah, check. Bagus. Suaranya?
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi raji'un. My deepest condolences to Firas, Sumaya, Mbak Dasmalina Ayoub, Dr. Linda, and other family. Dear distinguished brothers and sisters, as Brother Ahmad Munjid mentioned, I'm teaching at the Alauddin State of Islamic University of Makassar, Indonesia. I completed my MA in Religious Studies at Temple in 2005 under the supervision of Professor Mahmoud Ayoub. But first of all, I thank you especially to our colleagues at Reducates, especially to Professor Etin Anwar and Brother Ahmad Munjid for the initiative to hold and organize this virtual meeting to remember and pray for our beloved teacher and father, Professor Ayoub. This itself is a great blessing, at least for me, because we students, friends, and colleagues of Professor Ayoub across generations and nations can see each other again virtually and come to know friends that we haven't met. And we met again friends that we haven't seen each other for a while. As Brother Ahmad has just mentioned, I have actually shared some of my sweet, deep and funny memories and impressions of Professor Ayoub on my Facebook wall. And my FB friends express how grateful they are to have learned about the extraordinary character of Professor Ayoub through reading my stories. And I think among the things that made me able to write already 3 short essays about him are because in his academic careers as teacher or professor, Professor Ayoub showed great sincerity and love for his students and for so many people that he met during his lifetime. In the religious term, I would say that Professor Ayoub's knowledge and teachings are full of barakah or blessing in such a way that they can be forever vividly remembered. Of course, I will not repeat what I have written on social media, and the reason why I have written those essays in a kind of formal Indonesian was that because I think it will be easy and correctly auto-translated when one's not speaking Indonesian needs to understand the essay. But let me begin by just reflect on my first meeting with Professor Ayoub. When I was applying for my postgraduate studies in the United States in 2003, I first sent my application to George Washington University in Washington, D.C. This was because I wanted to study under the direct academic supervision of Professor Syed Hossein Nasr, who, after teaching at Temple, became a professor of Islamic studies at George Washington University. I wrote an undergraduate thesis about the thought of Dr. Nasr, and I wish I could learn directly from him. Unfortunately, my application was rejected because George Washington University required a very high GRI score, which I could not meet. I was then advised by a managing staff in the Fulbright Scholarship Office in Jakarta to send my application to Temple University, and who reminded me that at Temple, I could study with Professor Mahmoud Ayoub. Before that, I would always remember that Professor Ayoub was still teaching at McGill University, Canada, because some of my lectures at the EIN Makassar were his students at McGill. So without thinking, I sent my application there, and thanks God, it was accepted. When I first came to the Department of Religion office on the 6th floor of the Anderson Hall building, I first visited Professor Ayoub's office. When he heard me saying salam in Arabic, he could easily guess that I was Wahyuddin and said, "I'm really happy you could finally make it." I assumed that he might be the academic staff who was in charge of taking care of my application at Temple, and I was grateful for that. I felt like already being personally close to him simply because of this sincere hospitality that he showed me at our first meeting. I felt that he was such a person who, when you were meeting with him for the first time, you would feel as if that was a blessing for you. I'm not very spiritual myself, but I felt that Professor Ayoub was able always to draw us close to God when we met him, to have compassion and love to human beings. I thought that was indeed a blessing in disguise, being rejected at GWU and accepted at Temple. When I started taking courses at Temple, a PhD student from Malaysia, also in the religion department, who completed his MA program at GWU, one day told me that Dr. Nasr was always busy with many academic schedules, so he would not have much time to supervise students other than during his formal lectures. On the other hand, with Professor Ayoub, he almost always has free time to talk, another thing outside of class schedules. I was truly grateful to have had so precious time to study under Professor Ayoub's guidance for 2 years. as well as to interact with him or accompany him in both academic and non-academic occasions after I graduated from Temple in 2005. As a matter of fact, it was through these personal interactions and conversation with Professor Ayoub outside the formal lectures that allowed me, and I believe all the other colleagues here too, to explore more of his knowledge, complex life experience, and wisdom. As I often walk with him from Anderson Hall building to his campus inn, I always took such an opportunity to ask him many questions about many things. I did the same thing when I accompanied other fellow students like Brother Dr. Roslan, who became our driver to take Professor Ayoub around to talk at several seminars and conferences in and around Philadelphia or the state of Pennsylvania, including to present at an AAA conference or AAA conference in Baltimore. One of the things I find most impressive about Professor Ayoub personally as a teacher is that each of his students seems to feel very close to him and feels treated special by him. In other words, everyone who had studied with him would feel that he or she was given a special attention from Professor Ayoub. I've heard from many fellow students of Professor Ayoub that he left a deep impressions on them, and they especially thought they were very close to Professor Ayoub. I think that is partly because Professor Ayoub paid attention to not only the academic problems we students normally face, but also other personal issues that might affect our performance as students, including to show a sincere attention to our families. I just want to tell one story. I remember inviting him to visit my small bachelor apartment next to Makkah Masjid at 1313 West Susquehanna Avenue. That was after he gave the Friday sermon at the mosque. So together with Mbak Lina, he stopped for a moment and talked with my wife and played with my small baby boy, Ahmad. I remember took a picture at the moment where Professor Ayoub holding Ahmad on his shoulder. More than once, Professor Ayoub did that to my son, which made my wife and I very grateful. That one-year-old son had the blessing of being respected in such a way by an extraordinary scholar, professor, and intellectual with an extraordinary personality like Professor Ayoub. I remember one day when together with Mbak Lina and several Indonesian students and their families, Professor Ayoub came to join us to watch the fireworks in the eve of the America Independence Day. Even though the atmosphere was so crowded and noisy, Professor Ayoub still seemed to be enjoying and having fun. When he found out that I was busy shooting fireworks with my camera and my wife was cheering with other mom's friends, she told me and my wife, Jopi, "You guys have fun and let me take care of Ahmad." Then he asked Ahmad to be carried on his shoulders. He said, that way, Ahmad could see the fireworks more clearly from a higher viewpoint. I agree with the impressions of many of his students and friends here that Professor Ayoub is a very dedicated and wise teacher, an extraordinary person, humble and caring. Professor Ayoub, we love you and we already miss you. May Allah bestow His mercy and grace upon you and to Firas, Sumaya, and Baklina. May Allah give you strength and patience in this testing time. Terima kasih. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you so much, Brother Wahyuddin, for the beautiful stories. I do not see Ahmad Rafiq because he informed me that he was still in some other event, and also Zaenal. So now I invite Mbak Yeni as the next speaker. Mbak Yeni is Dr. Ayoub's student at the Hartford Seminary, together, I think, with Brother Jacky Manuputty. Yeni, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mas Munjid. Hello, everybody. Everyone, my name is Yeni. I was Professor Mahmoud Ayoub was my thesis advisor in the beginning. I was changed professor from Heidi had sold to Professor Mahmoud Ayoub because the thesis was about Indonesia. And I think Professor Ayoub was the only person at that time that knows well about Indonesia. First of all, before that, I'm sorry, I'm kind of nervous at the moment because we have a lot of great people here in the Islamic studies. Lina, condolences for the passing of Professor Ayoub, and Firas, nice to see you again here. Send our regards to Sumaya and Dr. Linda. We all lost a great father. For me, he was a father, actually. When Lina, sorry. When Lina goes to, if Lina went to Indonesia, I was the person that he called to take care of him. So, but I was always surprised to see how he managed to go around and make coffee. It was always a surprise for me to see that the way he do things, that like a person that can see nothing. So the blindness is not something that stop him to do something else. So I was so surprised to see him as a professor as well as a father. The only thing that I remember now is, Yeni, you have finished your thesis. Now we should find you a husband. At that time, he always caring like I was not his student, but he was like a daughter from not a Muslim background, but from a Christian background. But he took me in at that moment with Lina. So we all lost him. But he's still in our heart and make an impact in our lives. So thank you, Firas, for having such a wonderful father. Thank you. Malin, I'm sorry. So, Galina, I hope that we can see you here in Indonesia. And Firas, you too the same. Thank you. I think that's almost Munjid. I'm sorry. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, thank you so much, Yeni. Now I want to invite the next speaker, and that is Lien. Lien is a PhD student at University of Chicago. Lien, please.
Thank you, Mas Munjid. Thank you to Etin for organizing this memorial service, and thank you everyone. Most here are my teachers for sharing your fond memories with him. My condolences to Firas, Sumaya, Lina, especially who had cared for Ayoub with love and devotion, and to Professor Linda. May Allah bestow His mercy and compassion to you, Ayoub, and to your family. Ayoub, you and your family are always in my thoughts and prayers. I was lucky to be one of Ayoub's last students before his retirement at Hartford Seminary in around 2015. I have to especially thank Alwi Shihab as the wasilah, for this opportunity that I will treasure forever. The first time I heard the news of his passing, I was brokenhearted, just like I believe everyone here felt. I missed him so much, and I plan to visit Montreal since my husband and I live in Chicago right now. We plan to visit him in 2020. We had applied visa, but unfortunately, it was not possible due to the pandemic. We met so many people and teachers in our life, but some just touched our souls that deeply words can't describe. And I think Professor Ayoub is easily one of them. His passing especially has invited me to think and to reflect a lot about what really matters in life, learning from his examples, and what really matters is, I think, love and life itself. He has lived in his life to the fullest. Professor Ayoub only understands the language of love, despite the hardships and suffering he has faced since his childhood. And that's, I think, precisely why loving him is very natural, because we just don't know any other kind of response but to love him back dearly, albeit always less perfect than the love he has showered us with. I think love is really in the foundation of his life and work. His love for music, he plays violin, and he loves various so much. His love for philosophy, his favorite philosophers are Plato and Plotinus, also Ibn Sina. His love for religions and humanity, his work in intra and interfaith, his deep care for his students and everyone he met, his characters, I think all is on the basis of love. There are a lot of memories that, we had, but I will share some that would showcase, how much he cares for his students. I remember we were in the last class of major themes in the Quran and the Bible. The students were presenting the papers, and in the end of the class, he said, with that, gesture of sincerity, and we can feel that sincerity, like, students, thank you so much for sharing your research. I learned a lot. This statement might be, usual. But if someone who said it is a nearly 80 years professor, a senior, and he said it in with that level of sincerity, it just hit your heart, and it testifies, his character, how much he, his sense of humility. Also, I remember I went to his house and to discuss about my thesis, and Mbak Lina and Pak Ayoub had to rush into something, and we couldn't finish our conversation. 3 days after he called, I was like surprised, like, why Professor Ayoub called me. And then he said, Lien, I'm so sorry, I had to leave and we didn't finish our conversation and blah blah blah. And I was like, oh my goodness, he still thought about it. And he said, you don't need to and I said, you don't need to say sorry, Pak Ayoub, I totally understand. And then he continued, his advice, do this and that. And if you still want to talk more, just come to our house anytime you want. And I was like, thank you so much. Like, you don't need to do this, but thank you so much. And he said that I want to make sure that I serve my students well. So he thinks of himself as a servant, quote unquote, to his student, and he lived that principle throughout his life. When we were at Hartford, Professor Ayoub and Mbak Lina were always welcoming. Mbak Lina, you have no idea how grateful we were that your house was always open for us, especially Indonesian students. We felt the presence of a family despite being far from home. In fact, Professor Ayoub told me that Jamal, my husband, and I were his grandchildren, because he always, make sure that everyone feels that personal connections with him. His legacy to me is immense. He has nurtured me intellectually, emotionally, spiritually. His reflection about God is so deep. And he doesn't only study religions or God, but he embodies what he knows. I remember I was rather younger and I was asking him, like, Pak Ayoub, does God really exist? And he said, like, Lien, God is the only I know for certain exist. In fact, I'm not sure whether we exist in the real sense of the world, in the real sense of the word. he has helped me with looking for additional funding when I was a poor student. I remember that, and I'm grateful for his help. He wrote a letter of recommendation for my application at the University of Chicago, and many more that he has done to help me move forward in my study in my life. I was lucky that in 2015, I managed to interview him a 5-hour-long audio recording where he shared many personal stories and insights. During this time, I believe he has started writing his memoir, but he was still thinking about publishing it or not. I listened to some of the recording last night to refresh the memory. And he said in the beginning of the conversation, Lien, writing a memoir is like stripping. You let others see you naked. And I'm utterly grateful that he has finished writing the memoir, as Firas said in the beginning. And I'm so very looking forward to reading it. Inshallah, Firas, the family will find the publisher so that everyone has the opportunity to learn from his life and from his wisdom. He said once that there are 3 moments that are special to him. I won't mention the other 2, but I will mention one. And one of them is when his article or book is published. He said that, I would hold it like this, like I would hold it and like dearly and cradle it. And I think I would hold and cradle the book, the memoir, whenever I have them in my future, imagining that he would do it if he is still alive. May Allah love you, Pak Ayoub, and keep your family in his care and compassion. Professor Ayoub, we miss you so very much. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Lien. Since Lien also mentioned about the memoir, I was wondering whether towards the end of the session, before Professor Yusni Shaby recite the Dua, maybe Firas want to read some small part of the memoir, if you like, later on.
Yes, I would be happy to. There's a shorter chapter that I think everyone would really, it's just a few minutes. Everyone would, I think, really love to hear. So I would love to share it whenever you're ready. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. Now, I know it's time is running out, but let me invite now Hilman Latief. Professor Hilman Latief is now the General Director of Hajj and Umrah Affairs at the Department of Religious Affairs in Indonesia. And he was with me at the CRCS, the first batch of CRCS, and also when we went to the US under Fulbright, we worked together. Brother Hilman, please.
Thank you, Pak Munjid. Thank you, everyone. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum.
Lahu warhamhu wa'afihi wa'afu anhu wa akrim nuzulahu wa wasi' madkhalahu. I'm very honored for being here, and thanks Pak Munjid and Etin for having this beautiful events to share our memories of Pak Mahmoud Ayoub. I was one of his students at Gajah Mada University, Yogyakarta, where we start learning what comparative religion is and how we understand religion in an academic way. I know some of the students in my class had various backgrounds. Some graduated from philosophy, other from anthropology and sociology, and other students from Islamic studies background, and so forth and so on. And therefore, the presence of Professor Ayoub inspired us how to learn religion. And I saw this as, I saw Pak Ayoub as a legacy. He has a great legacy in Indonesia, as we have seen here. A lot of his former students, whether those who were studying at Temple universities and McGill, and as well as Gajah Mada University. I was impressed by Pak Ayoub, of course, when I was a student, because I know that with his limit of visions, I was impressed because he criticized my paper a lot, okay, much more than other professors teaching at Gajah Mada University. I was surprised and of course curious how he read and give comment cautiously to my paper. Then he also reminds me to distinguish between scholarly books of Islam and non-scholarly works of Islam. I remember I quoted a lot of the book written by Dr. Maurice Buchet, French physicians who wrote a Bible, Quran, and science. Okay, I quote his work a lot, and I get a comment from Mr. Ayoub. Hilman, you have to read an academic works, and this one is not quite right in your paper. So I was thinking to read things. Okay, why Professor Ayoub gave a comment like this? Ladies and gentlemen, in my view, Professor Ayoub has shown his greatness, his patience of facing Indonesians, or especially Indonesian students. I believe he knows how to treat Indonesian students because his intense interactions, okay, the language of the English language of Indonesian students, the expressions, the argument in the paper, and so forth and so on. And he always showed his passion, but he also showed that he believed these students could graduate in the doctoral programs. That's what I was impressed. Once I came to his house in Philadelphia with Brother Munjid, and I believe there was also Mbak Lina, who was very cheerful. Maybe you forget me because we rarely interact. And Pak Ayoub showed his professionalism. Okay, he is a professional. He's a Ken professor, and he said to my brother Munjid, "Mr. Munjid, Pak Munjid, where is your final paper? I've been waiting for your final paper. It's been 2 months. I've been waiting for your paper." So I was surprised, and Brother Munjid, my good friend, just told Pak Ayoub, "Okay, Pak Ayoub, don't worry. What's this Pak Munjid say? Pasti saya selesaikan," katanya. "For sure, I will accomplish my paper. Just wait for this right moment to send you my paper." So it's it's very funny. Brother Munjid was very dare to come to Professor Ayoub, while he didn't send his two final papers, okay, for 2 papers. And for Ayoub just smiled. Okay, I forget what he said, but he showed his passion at the time. and at the time I thought Pak Munjid, bro, coba lebih telaten, jangan telatan. Yeah. So what is in English? Please be, telaten means, what is Pak Munjid telaten in English? Second, don't be
Be more
telatan.
meticulous, but do not be late.
Yeah, that's right. Because Professor Ayoub is very nice at the time, and in that sense, he really understood the nature of Indonesian students, and especially Brother Munjid and his classmates at Gajah Mada University who studied in the United States of America. Well, I'm of course we lost for his after he passed away, and we very sad. And of course, we should also show our great feelings, ikhlas, because he contributed a lot in the developments of Islamic knowledge, Islamic science, Islamic studies, especially for Quranic studies for Indonesian students. And because of Pak Ayoub's teachings, I start working on my thesis in Western Michigan University in the Department of Comparative Religion to study Hinduism in the works of Muslim scholars in the 13th and 15th centuries. Okay, I wrote Al-Biruni and Shahrastani and their view of Hinduism, and in order to arrange my thinking, I read a lot from his books about the Quran and its interpreters. So that's my impressions, and I believe everyone has shared a very beautiful moment with Pak Ayoub. Thank you, Pak Munjid, and thank you everyone. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Brother Hilman. Yeah, we, Dr. Ayoub's Indonesian students are very close to him. So we feel sometimes feel free to even to be careless. We would not have courage to do that to other professors, but it's because of our closeness to him. Okay, we still have some other friends who want to share stories, and I saw my good friend Florian is also here, and Florian was also a very close student to Dr. Ayoub. So I want Florian to also share your stories, please.
Thank you, Pa. It's a beautiful celebration. Is what I wrote in the chat when Pa Roslan, who, like many of you, I haven't seen in such a long time, and we're now being brought back together by a sad moment in our communal life, but also one that makes me grateful for a particular way in which we're remembering Pa Ayoub, one that corresponds really to our relationship with him, and that's one that for me is marked by his emphasis on creating a community around him, and a community that, as some of us said, was a community of love, but also one of scholarship, of seriousness on issues for the world, and one with a lot of humor and laughter around it as well. And so I'm grateful to see this today here on this beautiful memorial too. I just want to say one thing that I hope Pa Ayoub would appreciate, namely a reference to a theologian, a Christian theologian who taught, a German theologian even more, who however taught in the United States for a long time as well, Dorothee Sölle. And one of the things that stands out to me in how she speaks about the memories and writings that live on in our hearts for Dr. Ayoub, when she speaks about Dorothee Sölle, about how we as a community often no longer really remember the people who passed. She says that that lack of remembrance is one of the reasons for an increasing coldness in our communities. And so she has this wonderful phrase where she, in German, but I'll translate it into what I think might be a good English equivalent. She says, quote, that the dead warm us. The dead warm us. And I think that's so evident for Pa Ayoub, that he warms us. And in remembering him, he warms us. So, Lina, Firas, Linda, Pa Ayoub warms us. And I'm very grateful for that.
Thank you so much, Florian. I agree with you. Dr. Ayoub's life is wonderful, and his death make it even almost perfect. Okay, now I invite the next speaker, my good friend, Professor Shalahudin Kafrawi. Kang Salah, please.
Assalamualaikum, everyone. Let me, first of all, offer my condolences to Mbak Lina, Dr. Ayoub's family. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, I would like to offer my condolences to Mbak Lina, Dr. Ayoub's family, and that's Firas, Sumaya, and Linda. And let us pray in this opportunity. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give Dr. Ayoub forgiveness, rahmah, compassion, and his rida, his blessing, inshallah. And may the family be given the patience and blessing always. I would like to share a couple experience that I have with Dr. Ayoub when he was in various forums, in conferences. I noticed that Dr. Ayoub is always attentive to the speech, the lecture given in those opportunities. And he is always the first one to ask questions. If there is nobody asking questions, he always come up with one. So that make the exchange of ideas to take place in a way that is really, really fruitful for the forum. And then secondly, when I was walking him from a conference event, we had a conversation about interfaith dialogue. And we know that Dr. Ayoub is a real champion for interfaith dialogue. But what he said to me was very surprising at the time. And that is, he said, I don't like interfaith salad. I don't like people come together and take an element of the dialogue from Christianity, from Islam, from Hinduism, etc., etc. I don't like that. And that is given the fact that we have some disagreement and in certain situation, lack of appreciation because of the perceived lack of authenticity and authority when spoken in that language in the context of the interfaith dialogue. But what is really inspiring me is the fact that, of course, there are a lot of concerns among people of different religious persuasion. There are common principles. There are so many common values, moral values across those traditions. And interfaith dialogue give us that, the emphasis that we have so many common concerns, common moral values across tradition, but that is becoming so superficial if we don't go back to our tradition. So what Professor Ayoub was suggesting to me was that, look, now that you have listened to the common concerns, common goals, common project among people of different religious persuasions, now go back to your tradition. Dig deeper into the tradition. Those concerns are really there. Those values are there. And so that is what makes interfaith dialogue much more meaningful, by creating some kind of movement from within each tradition that those participants in interfaith dialogue are making. And so finally, I just would like to share that Dr. Ayoub is a really warm, respectable individual. He always wants to make people to be important. And we are going to miss him a lot. May God bless him, inshallah. Thank you, Ahmad.
Thank you so much, Professor Shalahudin Kafrawi. It's already 10, but we still have a few more friends to share stories. Is that okay, Pak Yusni, for you? Because you will be reciting dua by the end of the session. Is it not too late for you?
No problem.
Okay. Sorry about this. We probably will end by 10:15.
By 12, why not by 12?
Okay. Thank you for your kindness. Okay, now let me invite other friends who want to share a story. Brother Hans Harmakaputra, please, Pak Hans.
Thank you, Mas Munjid. First, my deep condolences to Lina and Firas, also Sumaya and Linda. And this is really a mixed feeling moment. I'm still brokenhearted with the passing of Professor Ayoub, but also gladdened by a lot of people who share stories about him. And what really struck me is that all of you, and including me, has a similar experience. So it's been consistent in the past decades. I'm like Lien was among his last students at Hartford Seminary. And currently, I'm also visiting assistant professor at the same institution. So I'm kind of emulating his footstep here, even though I know I won't be able to be like Professor Ayoub. And some of my memories were really about him being my academic mentor, besides being also a father and also neighbor, because Professor Ayoub and Lina live on campus and we often go to their place and talk and eat. I took his classes as a newbie. I was a new person who studied Islam because my undergrad was in Christian theology back in Jakarta. So I came to Hartford Seminary to study interfaith dialogue, but as you know, for Dr. Ayoub, it's not just about interfaith dialogue. It's about learning deeper about each religious traditions. And that's what he really taught me well, I think. So I took his classes, and like what Irfan mentioned, Professor Ayoub is a very kind person. He speaks nicely, but sometimes he can be harsh to people for good. So he speaks to the person. And I think besides in conferences, when he will shout to some people who thinks has been passing the line, also to his students. So I remember in one of the last meeting, we present our final paper topic. And during that meeting, I thought my topic was good. But then he told me that, no, it was not. So I really need to work more. And I was really depressed at that night because it's already like a week before the submission date. But I was working on the paper, and that became my first publication. And that really became the paper that really made me wanted to study comparative theology, Islam and Christianity. So he really says something, it might be hurtful at the beginning, but he speaks the truth. And that really influential in my academic career. And also I remember he mentioned to me once that if I wanted to do PhD, besides deepening my knowledge of Islam and of course my Arabic, I also need to work on my English, because he told me that my English was not bad, but peculiar. So he used that word peculiar. And I realized, okay, yes, English is not my first language and I need to work on that. But every single advice he gave me was memorable and really useful in the long run. And I would say that his approach as a teacher is a holistic one. He doesn't really care about our academic, but also personal life, as also Lina showed the same care. And I just want to end with an aspect of Dr. Ayoub, which other people have been saying, which is humorous. So Dr. Ayoub, when I was a student, I had this long distance relationship with my girlfriend at that time, which is now my wife. And then eventually I got married after I finished my master. And when I met him, he gave me the advice. So I still remember the two advices, two tips for long-lasting marriage, rumah tangga. The first one is two phrases. Remember, Hans, you need to always speak these two phrases. One is, yes, ma'am. And the second is, I'm sorry. So that's the first tip. And it clearly made me capable of being a husband for these past 7 years, I believe, and hopefully for years ahead. And the second, he always says to, I think not only to me, but also to his students, that the husband is the head of family. That's true. But the wife is the neck. So without the neck, you cannot move the head. So who is really the head, basically? So he's really, I know he's joking, but there are truths in what he's saying. And that's an important lesson, to respect, being respectful to your spouse, being respectful to husband, wife. So I want to close that. And again, I really hope Lina and the family will be strengthened by God. And I believe Dr. Ayoub is with God right now. And thank you.
Thank you very much, Hans. Now I invite
Hans forgot the third tip, Brother Munjid. Hans forgot the third tip. Marriage is only for 10 years.
Oh, he didn't say that to me.
Okay. Right. Now, let's listen to Brother Omer Awass. Brother Omar.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and thank you for inviting me. And first of all, I'd like to extend my condolences to Lina, Firas, Sumaya, and Linda. Some of you I didn't get the pleasure to meet, but hopefully, inshallah, in the future, we'll cross paths. I can't quite capture the sort of moving stories that you guys gave, but I'll start by saying that my journey with Dr. Ayoub actually begins before I met him, and that is through his work. Some of you mentioned the Quran and its interpreters. So back when I in my alma mater as an undergraduate student, we noticed there was a lacuna in lack of Islamic studies classes at our university. Although it was a very big university, there wasn't a single class on Islam. And so we decided to sort of come together, a few of us and other students, to form a class and offer it and teach it. And of course, in those early periods, there was a dearth of literature in terms of trying to find things that could be teach Islamic studies with. But one of the works that we relied on at that time in our class, which was Quran and its interpreters, and because obviously specifically in the area of Quranic commentary, there isn't much in the English language, although now, many decades later, since that has been taught, there's been more of it. But, Dr. Ayoub's work is really one of the foundational work, and especially in the fact that it integrated classical and contemporary, it integrated different sects within Islam within it, and brought it into the English language, so that the English students can appreciate the Quran. So many years later, after that period in which I ended up joining at Temple University in the mid-2000s, I was ecstatic that I would finally meet the person in whom which we benefited from. And I got to enjoy the time with him during the period in which he was still in Philadelphia at Temple University while I was there. Of course, we had many moments of much of what you all shared in terms of being with him, and he was always someone who was welcoming. In fact, the first class or independent study that I had with him was actually done in his own home, because I lived next to him. It was just by coincidence that we happened to live near each other in South Philadelphia. And so we would have the sessions of that independent study at his house. And so I got to, interact with him on a personal basis, and he was always a friend first. In terms of, I remember a sort of a defining moment is when I was, we often would go to the Jummah prayers together in different places like Bawa Muhyiddin, sometimes Mecca Masjid and so forth. But one time the community that I was attending the mosque at needed someone, because a church had approached them and asked them that they wanted to have a kind of a dialogue. And they asked me, Omar, if you know someone or yourself could do it. And I said, okay, maybe I'll ask Dr. Ayoub. He's well versed in interfaith dialogue. And this was a church also in South Philadelphia near where we were. And so, of course, I asked Dr. Ayoub, and he agreed. And Dr. Ayoub, went and gave a very, very moving and powerful and let me say unapologetic presentation of in the church of the Islamic understanding of Jesus. And despite that, the people in the church were quite moved because of the fact they sensed his sincerity and his earnestness in that. And so they, and I remember the community, the Muslim community that had been the partner hosting Dr. Ayoub at this event were very happy as well. And they would always recount to me every time I'd see them at iftar and stuff like that at their mosque, how how they would ask me about Dr. Ayoub, and we're always very fond of that lecture that he gave and how much they learned from it. Of course, I had the pleasure of not only working with Dr. Ayoub at Temple University, but when he moved on to Hartford, I was able to join him there as well as a visiting professor for 1 year, of course, through his own recommendations and so forth, which helped me get placed there. And so I got to extend my stay and be with him and learn so much from him, as always was the case. But even moving on from Hartford and now being in Chicago, I maintained a great deal of, as much as I could, occasional touch with Dr. Ayoub. And in the last occasion, when a couple of months ago, I just tried to sort of remind him of how important he is to us. And by saying that, repeating the hadith, the Prophet, in Allah yarhamu man fil ard bishuyukh al-ruk'a, or something of that sort. So I reminded him that Allah has mercy on people on earth because of the elders or the shuyukh that are constantly prostrating. So his presence, even though he may have felt that he is more physically bound than before, but his presence in itself was a source of mercy for all of us on this earth. Of course, as we all know in this session, that although Dr. Ayoub departed from us in this world, that he actually awaits us, and that this is just a journey along the road, and that hopefully he'll open the doors for us when we join him, inshallah, in the hereafter. And I'll just close by saying, as in many cases, in terms of knowing people and being separated from people is often something that's very hard for us. But as I always say, that distances are bridged by proximities of the heart, and therefore Dr. Ayoub is always in our heart and is always close. And thank you very much for having me, and I enjoyed all of your testimonials.
Thank you very much, Umar. It's 10:15. We have two more speakers, Zuhelmi and Afdillah. Can you keep it shorter, like 3 minutes each, so we can end, within, before 10:20 or 10:30, I mean. Okay, I invite Zuhelmi and then Afdillah, please.
Thank you, Dr. Munjid. Assalamualaikum. I was at the Hartford Seminary from 2015 to 2017, and I believe that I might be the one who took Dr. Ayoub's class. It was at summer 2015, I believe. It's Introduction to Shi'i Islam. And after that, I believe Dr. Ayoub was no longer teach formally in any class. Maybe some like others, my interaction with Dr. Ayoub is more outside the classroom rather than in the classroom. Bulina, every time she wants to go to grocery stores, called me, asked Zuhelmi, do you want to come with us to the grocery store? And sometimes Dr. Ayoub went to. And one of my memories that make me feel that Dr. Ayoub and Bulina were like replacing the role of parents for me during my stay in the States. My first daughter was born there in Hartford, and right at the day after we left the hospital, Dr. Ayoub came to my apartment and he recited prayers to my daughters. She was 3 days old at the time, and for me, who came from Aceh with the strong Islamic traditions, it can replace something that that I might think I would not have. I mean, blessing a newborn baby at home for the first time, and Dr. Ayoub did this for me. He recited prayers, and he asked me, "What did you do?" I still have the recording. I rewatched it again. He asked me, "What did you do when she first came to work, the baby? Did you do the adhan?" "Yes, Dr. Ayoub, I did the adhan and iqamah." And then he said, "Good. inshallah she will be minal musallin. That's really meaningful for me. Thank you. Maybe that's all for me. Give back to the Chairman.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much, Brother Zuhelmino. The last but not least, Brother Afdillah, also Dr. Ayoub, Hartford Seminary. Please, Afdillah.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Mas Munjid. Innalillahi wa inna ilaihi rajiun. My family and I saddened by the passing of Dr. Ayoub. Our condolences to Lina, Firoz, and other family members. My relationship with Dr. Ayoub was more personal than academic. I came to Hartford Seminary in 2017 when Dr. Ayoub just resigned from the teaching, so I didn't have chance to study under him directly. But like all of you have experienced that Dr. Ayoub house is open for all Indonesian students. So I often came to his house talking to him and Bulina about many things. And I accompanied Dr. Ayoub in prayer at the Ja'fari Mosque in almost every Friday. So in Connecticut, I was more accustomed with the Shi'i tradition of Friday praying rather than to the Sunni, because that's another thing of story. I was also lucky to inherit some of the collections. When he moved to Canada, to Montreal, he called me and asked me to tabulate all his collections, and then he asked me to mention one by one his collections, and he said okay, and he gave the story of some of the books that he wrote or that he read, or maybe some of the books that he perceived from other students or other colleagues. And he asked me to tabulate the books, to collect the book in several boxes. Some boxes he gave to the library of Hartford Seminary, and some of them he gave them to me. And my family was enjoy when Dr. Ayoub and Bulina chose to stay at our house during the transition from Hartford to Montreal. I knew that Dr. Ayoub received many calls from friends and colleagues, invite them to stay at their house. But Dr. Ayoub called me and asked me if he and Bulina could stay at our home for several days before his their departure to Montreal. So it was kind of the last memory that we had with Dr. Ayoub. There are many memories, of course, but one thing that my wife always laughing when I recall this memory is when Dr. Ayoub mistook me as a single, and he tried to connect me to a Lebanese girl. He invited me to house for dinner, and then there are some girls, and then after dinner the girls went home, and I talked to Dr. Ayoub. He asked me, so how about do you think about these girls? He mentioned me, and then I said it's pretty. What else I can say? I didn't know at the time, but then he want to marry her. I said, well, Dr. Ayoub, I would love to, but I'm married, so and when my wife came to the US in 2018, 1 year later, I introduced my wife to Dr. Ayoub and Bulina. I said, oh, he recalled the stories again, so we laughed together. So it's kind of we have kind of all these kind of memories with Dr. Ayoub, and inshallah, he will be remembered all the times, inshallah. Thank you for this opportunity, and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much. I saw on the chat that Brother Wahyuddin and others suggested that probably if many of us have, interest in that, maybe we can gather some of these memories about Dr. Ayoub in writing, and probably we could publish a book as student of Dr. Ayoub. I think that is very good idea to be explored later on. Publishing a book in memory of Dr. Ayoub from different perspective on his contribution in Islamic studies, in Islamic theology, in Muslim-Christian relations, and others. Okay, so it's 10:24. I guess everybody on the list already spoke. And I am very sorry for other friends who are here, and I know you have wonderful stories to share as well. But time is very limited, and I really apologize for that. And now I invite Firas to read some of the part of Dr. Ayoub's memoir, and eventually Pak Yusni Shaby, Professor Yusni, will end the session with dua for Dr. Ayoub. Now, Firas, please.
Thank you very much. And just that I wanted to extend my thanks again from me and my family for organizing today's event. It's really is a gift to all of us, and it's interesting. Even after my dad's passing, I'm touched that he's still bringing all of us together. So thank you for that. So this is just an excerpt. It's a very short chapter from his memoirs, which are titled Days of My Sojourn. And just a shameless plug before I start, we're still looking for a proper publisher for the memoirs now that they're completed. So I put my email in the chat, and if anyone has any ideas or leads, please reach out to me. And once it's published in whatever form, I'll be very happy to share the link for you all to obtain a copy. Okay, so this is from Days of My Sojourn. This chapter is called The Night of Destiny. The Quran says of the night of destiny on which God first revealed his word that it is, quote, better than 1,000 months. The angels and the spirit descended therein by permission of their Lord for every affair, God says in the Quran, and peace it is until the breaking of dawn. Muslims believe that the night of destiny occurs on one of the odd-numbered nights of the last 10 days of the fasting month of Ramadan. Some of the scholars of the community speculate that, and others the eve of the 23rd, but it is widely believed so that people would celebrate all the nights, just as there is an hour on Friday in which God answers all prayers, but which he has not revealed, so that people pray with fervent hope the whole day. The Eastern Orthodox Christians of our area have their own night of destiny. They sometimes give this name to the Epiphany, the day on which Christ manifested his divinity through baptism in the Jordan River. When a student does well in school or achieves success in business, people say, his mother must have prayed for him on the night of destiny. My grandmother Sultana's stories about the night of destiny made me long to witness that blessed night. To that end, in a year in which I was about 9 years old, I went up on the roof in the evening of each of the odd-numbered days of Ramadan and raised the call to evening prayer. Before a proper mosque was constructed with a minaret, a male from the family would sometimes go up and give the call to prayer, and a few of these could be heard echoing around the village, especially during Ramadan. It was unusual for a boy to raise the call, but I wanted to hurry the breaking of the fast and beginning of the nights. The courtyard of our house was partly shaded by an old walnut tree, with 2 smaller apricot trees standing at the edge of the little vegetable garden. When the evening meal and lengthy visits from relatives were finished and everyone was asleep, I knotted one of the large scarves my mother used to use to cover her head around my neck, tied it to one of the apricot trees, and lay down to wait in the courtyard. It is believed that at a certain moment on the night of destiny, the heavens opened to give rain and the trees bowed down in worship of God, an idea inspired, no doubt, by the phrase in the Quran, "The plants and trees bow down to God." At that time, a light fills the horizon, the gates of heaven open, and whatever anyone prays for, they will have. I tried my best to keep awake until that happened, and thought that if I did fall asleep, the tree would pull the scarf on my neck and wake me when it fell down in worship. I thought about asking for my parents to be rich, for me to have my sight back, and for peace in the world. That was on my mind since it was the latter days of the Second World War, in which news of a possible armistice had reached even the people of our village in some vague way. But I fell asleep and found in the morning that the tree had somehow prostrated itself without waking me. My grandmother Sultana told me that only the foolish see the night of destiny. Perhaps I was not foolish enough to deserve that great vision. Or if the blessed night comes into the heart of every human being who is one of the true friends, awaliya, as the Quran says, of God, it does not come to doubters like me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the beautiful part of the memoir, Firas. We look forward to reading the publication, hopefully soon. And let's, all of our friends here, let's think about this plan for possible publication of us as student of Dr. Ayoub, writing, different perspective on his contribution in the field. We will stay in touch. Again, I apologize not to have time for everybody to share stories. Let's keep the sweet memories, the wonderful memories. Dr. Ayoub is our great teacher, as our great mentor, as our parent, friends, and families. We are forever grateful to have him with us. We pray for him. May Allah already accepted him, and he's a loving person, and he's been reunited with God in the eternal peace and eternal love. Thank you all so much for this. Thank you for Etin and for Kang Shalahudin and for everybody for organizing this, for coming, joining us together. This is a wonderful event. And let's close this session by reciting dua, and Professor Yusni Shaby will lead us. Pak Yusni, please.
Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Salam.
Before reciting dua, let's ask this for us. Is this gathering the first and the last altogether, or is there any other gathering like this as students or friends of Prof Mahmoud Ayoub? I think we should have something like this or more than this in the future, for the sake of being communicating among us, being friendship and know each other, which in fact many of us don't know each other. Of course, some of us we have known each other. Okay, and now let's close with the dua. But before that, let me recite the Surah Al-Ikhlas. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Qul huwallahu ahad, Allahu samad, lam yalid wa lam yulad wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim fil alamin innaka Hamidum Majid. Allahumma Rabbana taqabbal minna innaka antas samiul alim wa tub alaina innaka antat tawwabur rahim. Allahumma ij'alna minat tawwabin wa ij'alna minal mutatahhirin. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم اغفر لمحمود أيوب، اللهم اغفر له وارحمه وعافه واعف عنه وأكرم نزله ووسع مقبره برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم لا تحرمنا أجره ولا تفتنا بعده، واغفر لنا وله ولإخواننا الذين سبقونا بالإيمان، ولا تجعل في قلوبنا غلا للذين آمنوا ربنا إنك رؤوف رحيم. اللهم أعنا على ذكرك وشكرك وحسن عبادتك. اللهم أعنا على ذكرك وشكرك وحسن عبادتك. اللهم أعنا على ذكرك وشكرك وحسن عبادتك. اللهم ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. وصلى الله على محمد وعلى أهله وصحبه أجمعين. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة.
Terima kasih sekali Pak Yusni. Firas, again, our condolences to you and your family. Stay strong. Inshallah we'll stay in touch. Mbak Lina yang sabar ya.
Mas Munjid, can we take pictures first?
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, I almost forget about that. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I'm taking pictures of every one of you.
Yeah.
I'll count, okay? This is first page. 1, 2, 3. If you like your video to be on, please do so. Second page. 1, 2, 3. Thank you very much.
Thank you, terima kasih semuanya.
Terima kasih semua Mbak Lina. Sorry saya ada aktivitas lain tadi baru join di belakang. Rafiq, Mbak Lina.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
In touch.
Terima kasih semuanya.
Ya.